All right. Hello, everyone. It's a little bit over. Exaggerating a little bit. I don't travel 300 days a year. I only travel 208 days a year. With 189 airport visits and 3 hours more flight time than a British Airways pilot. So, still considerable amount. As said, yeah, this was just yesterday. Yesterday was my birthday, so that was like the best birthday present I've ever had, was to actually hear that the sessions, I did 2 sessions at Ignite and they were number 1 and number 2. So, and the even funnier thing was, like, icing on the cake was the fact that I won the conference with a session called How to Build a Conference Winning Session. So, at least worked out. So as said, I'm a Microsoft MVP in the core operating systems. I specialize in Windows internals, Windows troubleshooting and security. For the past year, I've done consulting only on AppLocker. So for the past year, I haven't had time to do any other consulting than AppLocker, which is the most used whitelisting solution. So that kind of tells the story as well. Before, I used to go through customers explaining them why they should deploy whitelisting, and now it's just deploy, 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 because everyone's using it, okay? So it is a very high focus by most of the companies. Things have changed. Like Paula said in the keynote, things have changed dramatically. We have huge companies like Netflix, for example, who doesn't use antivirus at all anymore. So the whole network is clean of antivirus. So there's like, the world has changed dramatically compared to what it was like 5 years ago. Why are we here? So first of all, there's these common findings that I listed here, because for multiple years, Gartner and all other highly respected companies would say that the most important thing in Windows security is getting rid of admin rights. That has been there since many, many years. It still sticks. I mean, back in 1993, the book Windows NT 3.1 User Guide says that there is no security in Windows if you're running an admin. So that's still valid today. But that was that for many, many years. They would say the most important thing ever for security is to get rid of admin rights. And now, for the past year, 2018, the recommendation changed. And for the first time, they changed so that the number 1 recommendation is whitelisting. Second is getting rid of admin rights. Well, you can't get rid of, you can't do whitelisting easily if you're running an admin. It's almost impossible against admins. I was here last year and it was funny, Paula was, or the year before maybe, Paula was doing a keynote again, and my session was after Paula, and sometimes I do this too much. I travel too much and speak in too many conferences, which means I get it becomes routine, and you start making mistakes. So my mistake was that I didn't really read what these guys at PDS said that I should be talking about. So I was half an hour before my show was to start, I took my mobile phone and went to the website, and it says, Sami Laiho is going to show you how to hack AppLocker. It's like, shit. Absolutely no idea how to hack AppLocker. Luckily, Windows is quite easy to hack, so in 30 minutes I was able to hack AppLocker. But it's just, if you're an admin, you can basically remove all the rules. Whatever we do with whitelisting, it doesn't apply against admins. Admins do whatever they want. So this still sticks. The most important thing you should do, and it was for many, many years, was just get rid of admin rights. There's like Avecto's pull up there or roll up there just appropriately. I didn't bring it here, but it's exactly at the correct place for this time, okay? There are third-party applications that can help you with that project. I'm going to talk about whitelisting. It will heavily focus on AppLocker, but we are talking about concepts, so you don't have to worry about if you're using something else, if you're using Carbon Black, if you're using Avecto, if you're using software restriction policies, I don't care. We're here for concepts. We're not here for just that specific AppLocker stuff, all right? There's a little bit trouble currently with a few main malware types. So if you look at why people are in trouble. If you look at what are the most common malware types currently, the two one are ransomware and crypto miners. There's a huge and a simple reason for this, because there's really no other way to monetize fast. So the malware guys are there for the money, which means you encrypting your data and getting money from you for that, or make your computer just mine bitcoins or whatever. Those are the easiest ways to monetize. That's why those are the most common ones. Then there are, of course, like before we had a lot more like traditional viruses that would spread, and the bad guys would get reputation over that. But nowadays it's about money all the time, which means that's why these two are the most common ones. We're going to talk about how to block these. There are 95% of malware that you can block by removing admin rights. But then these two are really problematic. Crypto miners you can basically block mostly by removing admin rights, but ransomware you can't. So if you take last year's biggest problem, which was WannaCry, in WannaCry's case, for example, you can't block the user from encrypting their own data. The problem is very obvious, because you can't deny them from deleting their own files, or you can't deny them from writing over their own files, so you cannot deny them from encrypting them. So that's a very difficult thing to solve. Everything else is quite trivial, but even in WannaCry's case, you couldn't block WannaCry from encrypting the user's data, but if you didn't have admin rights, you would contain it. Meaning that if you didn't have admin rights, then that WannaCry couldn't spread. It got into your machine, but not your neighbors. So removing admin rights would contain the threat, but not actually block what it was doing to you. The only way to block all of this stuff instantly and super easily is whitelisting. So that's why we're here, okay? Whitelisting blocks all of this stuff and is, I'd call it, very lazy and easy way of doing security, as most of my colleagues and customers and friends would be thinking the totally opposite. They're saying that I'm too lazy to do this listing of good applications. You have to remember that there is 1 million new pieces of malware out every day. So if you're saying you're too lazy to do whitelisting, I would be very amazed how you can say that. At least I would totally disagree with you. Because there's two options. You can either be listing maybe one good thing a week, or you can be listing 1 million bad things per day. So I don't know how you can make up that to be the lazy option, okay? I'm way too lazy to not do whitelisting. I've done it since 2002, and I wouldn't give up on it. People did mostly give up on it in like 2005, 2006, because people did it totally wrong way. I have one public reference that I can use, which is City of Helsinki. I was responsible for planning the deployment of Windows 7 for City of Helsinki in 2009, and we deployed AppLocker. So when I got into City of Helsinki, there's over 500,000 accounts in the Active Directory, 35,000 computers. They have computers including kindergarten, schools, hospitals, partly, government. So it's a very, very difficult and complicated environment. When we started, they had 8,000 lines on the whitelist. So there's 8,000 lines of allowed applications. And everyone knows that, like, no one wants to manage that. That is just horrible, okay? First, I put all the lines into Excel and used find duplicates. And it came down to 2,000, because the help desk is just so accustomed to the fact that maybe it's not running because it's not on the whitelist. So they keep adding it there, and there's no duplicate, there's no detection for duplicates. So that's why there's like 8,000 lines went down to 2,000 lines. But I'm really proud of the fact that if you think about this, you had 2,000 lines, that's what they were managing, and they thought it was horrible. And we're now, after 9 years, we're up to 78 rules. So 78 rules to manage an environment with government, hospitals, schools, kindergartens. So you can do whitelisting in very, very different ways. You can do it in an easy way, which requires you to first get rid of those admin rights, or you can do it the hard way, which is just going to make you hate it and you're going to get rid of it in some time. For me, this is easier. Now, Gartner says that you have to, that this is the most recommended security feature of 2018. Even better, I have a lot of customers. Finland is not a NATO country, but I have a lot of customers that are NATO countries, and NATO says so. There's no more questions about it. If you are operating a solution that connects to NATO networks, they need AppLocker. It's not a recommendation, it's a requirement. You need whitelisting. You can get away with that if you get another whitelisting, so you can replace it with something else, but you have to have whitelisting. It's not something that you're just thinking, maybe it would be great for us, but I don't have the time to do it. No, you have to do it. The recommendation is for Windows 10, to be fair. So if you're running Windows 7 systems, then it's not a requirement, I mean. So basics, you have to have some things in place, otherwise AppLocker will leak, and you will end up with a non-secure environment. I hate this modern security, cybersecurity consultant scheme that is, which is that I have these people who have never been admins before, but they started their careers as cybersecurity experts. And I end up in these questions all the time. I'm like, okay, we got AppLocker here. And then they're like, you know, we have Slack. We use Slack for chatting. Slack doesn't work with AppLocker. We have to allow Slack, and it's horrible that it's going to open up a security vulnerability. So Slack is horrible, and we can't use AppLocker. It's like, can't you just like, could you sometimes be fine by doing 99% of security? Because like I get to this all the time. I'm like, I have a solution. We have found a weakness in it. Just last week, there was a guy telling me that we can't use BitLocker because TPM vulnerabilities have been now found. It's like, okay, what do you mean? Well, if you have an electron microscope, look, yeah, fine, just carry on, you know, electron microscope, like every one of us, okay? You can penetrate a TPM with an electron microscope. So yeah, sure, absolutely. So I always end up in this. They're like, so we can't deploy BitLocker. I'm just like, so you're really saying to me that you're doing 0% of security rather than 99% of security? And that's very common. There's no, we can't deploy because it's not bulletproof. There's no bulletproof. There's nothing 100% in security. So the same goes with AppLocker. Don't give up on it when you feel like, oh my God, my AppLocker now has a hole in it. Well, it probably will. But that's if you want to keep it in your environment and keep it manageable, there's going to be a few holes in it probably. But that doesn't mean you should get rid of it, because it's going to block 99.99% of all freaking malware there is. But that's very common that people give up on it because they believe that now there's a known vulnerability in it. Anyway, you have to firewall everything. There's no exceptions nowadays. Everything gets a firewall. Whether it's a Mac, whether it's a Linux server, everything gets a firewall. Otherwise, even AppLocker can't operate. We need a firewall to support AppLocker. I'll show you later. BitLocker everything. If you don't have BitLocker, many people say BitLocker is data encryption. It's not. That's an added bonus of BitLocker, that you get data encryption. Yeah, that's nice. Your data won't be stolen, but that's not the reason for using BitLocker. BitLocker's main compartment in the security field is integrity. BitLocker is your glue. That's epochs. You make a great AppLocker rule set, and you dip it in glue. If you don't, someone's going to go and get rid of it. That's what happened with the previous time I was here. Because I didn't have BitLocker. AppLocker is like easier to hack in Windows 10 than ever before, as I learned. Okay? All you have to do is take off the network cable, go to C Windows, System32 AppLocker, and clear the folder. There's no AppLocker anymore. Okay? You can't do it if you have BitLocker. BitLocker is the glue. It's part of integrity. That's why every computer has BitLocker, whether it has data or not. There's no exceptions to that anymore. Remove admin rights, otherwise nothing works in Windows. As when it comes to security, everything relies on the fact that you're not an admin, so that needs to be your main objective anyway. Use anti-malware. I'm not going to give up on it. Like Netflix doesn't use anti-malware, I do. I have Defender. I haven't paid for an anti-malware in 5-6 years. I would never pay. I don't buy Symantec, McAfee, whatever, ever, because Defender is just fine because antivirus in general is not fine, okay? concept doesn't work. I'll put my money on a second generation antivirus like Silence or Windows Advanced, Microsoft Advanced Threat Protection or something like that. I'll put my money there, that's fine. But I'm not gonna spend it on a traditional antivirus. That is just insane if you ask me. That's very bad for me to say because like one of the biggest companies in Finland is F-Secure, which just sell this stuff. So I know Mikko Hyppönen very well, so sorry Mikko. I know this is recorded, so I'll have to say I'm sorry. So what do we start with? Everything with AppLocker would be dead easy if devs would do what we asked them to do. If devs would read the manual, everything would be easy, okay? AppLocker has no problem if devs would read MSD and documentation before they develop an app, all right? On my machine, you can see a horrible example, TeamViewer. TeamViewer opens up program files, puts 2 log files into the program files and allows limited users to write to those, which is absolutely against every security principle of Windows. You do not allow limited users to write to program files, okay? Cisco, security company in many ways. Cisco does that as well. Cisco opens up C Windows Internet Logs folder for limited users to write to. Again, that's a location where there's binary. There's not supposed to be write permissions for end users. That's why you have this structure. You have program files for your binary. Then you have your personal profile app data, if that's a user-specific setting or data that you want to write. If it's all users, then it's nowadays C program data. C program data is all users app data, okay? So there's a structure for it. Everything would work fine if you would adhere to this. Last time I was here, I did a session, 60-minute session on bashing on devs. I could do this for a day if you ask me, okay? It's like the most horrible mistakes devs do against IT pros, okay? You can't start with blacklisting. I hear this every week. Someone tells me, we're deploying AppLocker, but we're going to start with a few blacklist things. Stop it, that's stupid, okay? That is just insane. Because how can you blacklist? It's impossible. There's 1 million new bad things per day, so are you going to seriously blacklist 1 million things per day? That's not going to work. Blacklisting works against 2 things. It works against it works for extinguishing fires. Someone says iTunes has a serious problem and we need to blacklist it now. Let's blacklist iTunes. Or let's blacklist Spotify. I don't know what I have against music, but these are the last examples I've had. So anyway, so Spotify, iTunes, whatever. And blacklist works against kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old that I use a blacklist against, okay? Because I need to block them from using Firefox and Chrome because only IE and Edge I can protect with my family safety options in Windows 10. I'm quite sure my 9-year-old actually knows easily how to bypass it, but she just like behaves and lets daddy believe daddy's in control, okay? I had her on an AppLocker workshop. So I was doing an AppLocker webinar online, and that was the day. In Finland, we had a day of taking your kids to work. And she was at my office, and she was looking at like full day. I was talking to a microphone by myself, and she was like, your job is like the most boring job ever. But at some point, when I had the students online, I opened up the webcam, showed my 9-year-old daughter, and just introduce her. Like, this is Lumi. Lumi has been doing all the demos today that you've seen. What? Seriously, how old is she? 9. She knows AppLocker very well already. Oh no, is this normal in Finland? Yes. Normal curriculum of 7-year-olds start with AppLocker, okay? So, how do I do this normally? First thing we need is log forwarding. You need to implement Windows' own built-in log forwarding if you don't have paid things like Splunk or whatever. So implement log forwarding. It sounds like a kid's toy for many, But I have it implemented on my biggest customer that is a US company that has 550,000 endpoints. So it scales, okay? Don't worry about that. You might have to do a few different servers to collect those, but it can do like 50,000 clients easily. What's the idea here? Well, the idea here is I'm going to implement AppLocker for you, but I need to know how we are doing, okay? I need a centralized location to see if you're being blocked. City of Helsinki, the example, I was implementing AppLocker, and I had built a list of what I suspected that would be a good list for them. And then I said, now we're going to switch auditing on, and then we're going to watch about a month, and then we'll create a new rule set. And the CTO of City of Helsinki looked at me and said, Sami, you're such a pussy. I was like, what? We just turn it on. Fujitsu takes care of help desk, so we just turn it on. So he just turned it on. As requested, I did. Monday morning before 10 a.m., we had 2,000 calls in help desk. But I'll tell you this, I've never deployed AppLocker as fast as that. In a matter of a few days, we had everything running and everything was like done. But I would still recommend you do you're a pussy way, okay? I felt really bad, but customer is always right, okay? Or customer is always a customer. So anyway, that's what we normally do is turn on auditing. First collect logs, then we turn on auditing for a certain amount, well, quite quickly the whole environment, because auditing doesn't do anything bad, it just collects information. But we'll take a pilot, we'll deploy the rule set that we gathered during the audit mode, put it on about 20% of the environment, turn it on, have them run for another month, fix issues, fix the rule set, and then after that we'll turn it on for everyone. Takes a few months usually, so that's my normal. I take 4 days. That's actually my project. When I do an AppLocker project, I take 4 days. So it's like about 3-4 weeks in between. So it takes a few months to make it done. But the project is not done when you have turned on AppLocker, because there's also hardening. So we're going to talk about that as well. I'll show you examples on this. So log forwarding is available since Vista. You can turn it on. It's called a log subscription technically, and it allows Event Viewer to collect other Event Viewer data from different computers. If you need information on how to really configure it, we don't have time to do it here. It takes a little bit too much time. But if you need more information on that, I have an AppLocker workshop video on my dojo. So my 4 days of consulting is a little bit more than 19 euros. Sorry if that was a surprise. But with 19 euros, you can watch the AppLocker workshop for 2 days, and it goes through this, how to build a log forwarding system and everything. That's $19, or 19 euros very well spent, okay? AppLocker logs are way too small. You have to use group policy to change the maximum log size of AppLocker instantly, because it's down to 1 meg, which means that in a busy environment, that's about 15 minutes of information, and then it overwrites. So you have to increase the size, otherwise you can't get that log data. It doesn't have time to even forward it. You're going to miss data. So you have to increase that. At least 30 megs or 32 megs, usually what I set it to, and then we can keep up, and the event log forwarding works. I'm not going to demo that right now. So what does AppLocker bring you, and the requirements of AppLocker? The biggest one is enterprise version of Windows. And this is the lame excuse that I get everywhere I go. We can't deploy whitelisting because we only have professional. So what? If you want to be like, make it super easy, you can buy a product that does it. Doesn't care what the version is. But even Windows Pro, Windows 10 Pro, Windows 7 Pro, down to Windows XP, all of them have software restriction policies. AppLocker is internally, if you look at the registry key, it's going to write its value to SRP v2 registry key, software restriction policy version 2. Microsoft rebranded it as AppLocker because everyone hated the old software restriction policies, okay? That was in XP time, and everyone tried whitelisting. That was very hype, very cool in 2005. Everyone tried it and gave up because that's the time when Symantec and F-Secure and everyone said, you have to list hash values of every binary you're going to run. And then you had your first hotfix Tuesday, and you built everything again, okay? So everyone hated it. So somehow people associate that with the old software restriction policies, which meant that Microsoft didn't want to give you software restriction policy version 2 because people have already made up their mind. That's why they rebranded it as AppLocker. We all know Microsoft is very good in rebranding things. They're just yesterday talking about this. I love the fact I was in Redmond when they did the Office 360 launch. So Office 360 was ready to launch. They had all the marketing material, everything's done. And then they figured out, just before launch, they figured out that Office360.com was taken. It's a minor mistake, okay? So there's the marketing guys, you know, 360 degrees around you, there's an Office application, okay? It can do whatever needed. Office is all around you and gives you everything needed. And then Office360.com is taken. And then there's this marketing guy. Hey, what about 365 days in a year? App for every day? That sounds good, so let's do that. So Microsoft is good in like changing or jumping from version 6 to 9 in Office versions originally because the competitor did as well, and there's like they're good at rebranding. All right, so what do you need for AppLocker? You need a service that you need to start. It's called App ID service. Application Identity Service, you have to have that running. It's not running by default, so you have to set it running first. When you've done it, AppLocker, let me show you, SC query App ID Service. It's running on my machine. That's the state it should be in. If it's not, AppLocker won't work. Your most important friend all the time is your event viewer, because AppLocker has a log, which is super easy. So application services logs, and there you have basically 3 kinds of entries. You have informational, where you know that your new rule set was read. You have warnings. If you have auditing on, it says that this would not have been able to execute if AppLocker was in enforced mode. And then it says errors if something doesn't run. So super simple, like 3 different kinds of event entries, okay? When those are running, I guess you do this with group policy. I think that's the way you do it. So switch this to automatic. And then after you've done that, then you start building rules. Now we can build different kinds of rules. We can build file folder rules, which are just saying that allow something from a certain folder. My main tip for you on how to build a successful whitelisting solution is, it's a simple rule. Stick to containers and forget items. That applies to everything. That means you don't create a rule saying allow notepad.exe. You create a rule saying allow everything from C Windows. You don't create a rule saying allow TeamViewer 11.0. You create a rule saying allow anything from TeamViewer. Stick to containers, forget items. Otherwise, you're going to get that exploded list of 8,000 lines. And everyone's going to hate AppLocker, okay? So stick to containers. So think about this. I'm very talented in drawing, but I'll still take my chances. So we'll need a new note. Okay, so here we have if you think about your C drive, that's your C drive. Your C drive has a few folders in it, unless you installed the latest Windows 10 upgrade. That's Windows, program data, users. To simplify things a little bit, I'm just going to say program files, although there are program files and program files x86, okay? That's your C drive. Then I'm going to say that, let's do this. Then I'm going to say that I will allow you to run everything from there everything from there, and then I'm going to take away your admin rights. 2 rules, no admin rights. How would you run CryptoLocker on this? I know some of you know there are holes in this, so I am in a way expecting an answer, but on the other hand, everyone can be like happy and just keep your hands down because you are right, okay? There's no way of running CryptoLocker on this one. No. The idea is super simple. I think this is just a very simple way of thinking about it, but this is as simple as it is at the end of the day. Take away admin rights, which means you can't add anything to Windows and program files. Only places you can add something are not whitelisted. I have, this is, if you want to get free consulting out of this conference, this is your like best free consulting ever. Do this. Let me show you. That's 1 rule set, 4 rules. This is cheap consulting. Compared to any antivirus that you buy, I can guarantee that with this 4 rules, you kill 950,000 pieces of malware every day. Try to compete against that one with a paid service. Simple. Allow only signed code. Only 5% of malware is only 5% of malware is signed. It's 1 million new malware every day, which means I kill 950,000 pieces of malware per day without doing any changes, just running AppLocker like this. It only runs signed apps, okay? So now you're going to ask, of course, that, well, we have old applications that are not signed. Trust me, I have old applications. For those of you who didn't know, I have done many things in my career before I became a public speaker. I've been a scuba diving instructor, and I've been a web designer. My first ever job was a web designer. I was hired by a company in Helsinki called Tom Invest, and they were selling property, and I was supposed to do a website for them. I'm not very talented in website. I can show you. This is my family website. I built this myself, laihot.com. It's and Comic Sans, of course, so 90s, okay? So for that reason, I need things like website editors. What you see is what you get, editors, okay? And I have one called Web Page Maker. It's a very old, what you see is what you get editor, all right? Let's see if we can find Web Page Maker somewhere. There we go, Web Page Maker. This one is not signed. It's a freaking old application and it's absolutely not signed, okay? Totally unsigned apps. Now, does that bother me? No, because you can sign yourself. I just sign my apps. You can look at this 2 ways. You can create a rule when you have a new application, or stick to the rules that you have, but sign your apps. You can kind of like whatever you want to do. We have big integrators in Finland or Scandinavia, one called Atea, for example, and Atea signs everything with their own certificate, even if they're already signed, because that means they only have to have 1 rule which says allow everything signed by Atea. Configuration manager guys, the packaging guys have a little bit work to do, because the packaging guys will take apart the MSI package so that they can actually sign the binaries inside of the MSI package, because those are the ones that need to be signed. And then they will put back the MSI package and then they distribute it to their customers. But on the other hand, they don't have to manage AppLocker. They have a perfect whitelist solution, but there's no management to it. So there's like, somewhere you have to work a little bit. I'm sorry, really sorry. I know this feels horrible, but at some point you have to work a little bit. I was so proud when I went to my previous employer from end of 90s. I designed their IT infrastructure basically from ground up, and now my boss at that time, the CTO of the company, he was retiring. They had a new CTO, and he called me in and said that, Sami, you originally designed this, so could you come and explain to the CTO on the principles how this environment is built? I was like, yes, absolutely, of course, happily. I went in, and the first thing I said was like, first of all, we're running AppLocker, and at that guy panicked. He was like, no, I think we have to get rid of it. No whitelist, that is too much. No, I think we have to get rid of it. And my ex-boss just said to him, please follow me. Then he took us to their monitoring room where they have their IT service desk and a huge amount of monitors monitoring all sorts of aspects of the environment. And there's one that has an F-Secure console on it, and it shows virus or whatever malware infections. So my ex-boss brought this new CTO to the monitoring room and showed the monitor and said, check this out. And showed the F-Secure monitor. And the guy was like, but there's nothing there. Exactly. Because you can do which way you want. You can fight against that malware, that's reactive protections, or you can also be lazy. Just be lazy. Stop working too much, okay? Be lazy and use proactive measures. It's a lot better for you. You work a lot less. So, to kind of like show how this would probably look in real life, let's take a few examples. So, I'm actually going to show you a real live one because this is a bit a new one because I have a new PC. This is my rule set currently from my own computer. I run AppLocker. I don't run admin rights. If you start looking at this, you're going to get security guys are going to freak out. Okay, they're going to freak out. First of all, let's start from here. Here are the basic rules. All files located in Windows folder. Everything from there is allowed. All files from the program files folder, that includes both program files and program files 86, those are allowed. Is that perfect? Probably not. So what you have to do is hardening, which is you use sysinternals access check to look for right permissions for limited users in C Windows, and actually you have to do it recursively. So S. I'm going to stop this quite soon. It'll take a long time, but it already shows us two weaknesses, okay? So Microsoft themselves have made a problem here, which means that they allow limited users to write to temp and tracing folders, which means if I don't allow you to run Firefox from your profile, you just copy Firefox to tracing and run it from there, all right? How do you block it? You block it by creating an exception. So my rule set here, if you look at Windows folder, for example, it has a lot of exceptions. Run except from here. Tracing. Looks weird because there's tracing star and then there's tracing colon star. I would love to teach you 4 days of Windows internals, which means that BDS hosts these courses, which you should take. Free advertisement time, have to pay the bills. So, but one thing that we talk about there, for example, is alternate data streams. So NTFS file system uses a function called alternate data streams, and you can hide binary in alternate data streams. Now a guy on the internet figured out that every directory is a file, like in Linux, even in Windows, every directory is a file with an attribute of D, okay? And that means that even that directory has an alternate data stream. So every folder has an alternate data stream where you can hide binary and get it to run. That's why every rule now gets a second rule to block that alternate data stream. So are we continuously fighting against this? Yes, we are. I'm going to do a favor for my dear friend from Norway. You know that everyone needs to be on Twitter if you're in IT. And follow Oddvar Moe. Oddvar is specialized in AppLocker bypasses. And he has a GitHub repository that just lists all known weaknesses of AppLocker. It's very good stuff. He was just speaking at DerbyCon just because of this last week in US, so it's very, very good. Smart guy. Gonna bypass me on Twitter in the amount of followers after this, so it's a little bit worried about showing you that. Oddvar Moe, okay? Now, after that we have things here. So admins can run anything. Yes, because admins can run anything anyway, okay? Now, iBlock Explorer, well, yeah, that's a different trick. I guess you all know this. This is the old demo that I've done for ages, which is that I use my limited user with my index finger, and then I have my admin finger, okay? And I just want to block myself from using a local admin account to log on, because I never log on as a local admin, but now I have to block it. So I actually block local admins from running Explorer, which means they can't run anything. If they log on, they'll get a black screen and they have to log off. They can't do anything. Because in Windows, you can't limit user logons for UAC elevations only and not interactive logons. So sadly, if you want to allow this with your finger, then you have to allow that user to also interactively log on. And I'd never, ever want to see an admin log on to my box, okay? So those are a little bit out of the context. Signed by Adminize. So whatever I sign, I buy a VeriSign certificate. It costs me about $200 per year. I buy it because it's just easier for me because I anyway sell software and I need them to be signed by a trusted third party. But if you have your own company, that won't cost you anything. You just do your self-signed code signing certificate or request it from your CA. So that's going to be a free project. There's two known weaknesses, MSHTA and MSDT. They can run anything, but they're inside of program files or windows, which means that we have to block them because they can be used to bypass AppLocker. I run everything from HP. Now the security guys will start jumping up and down like crazy, Sami. That is so stupid. Haven't you heard? HP had a keylogger they distributed to everyone. I had a Lenovo before and I allowed anything from Lenovo and they're like, no, Lenovo has been spreading malware. I was like, come on, like, think about this through now. This is an HP laptop. Do you think I have any control on what HP runs on it? HP owns -2 layer of Windows. I mean, Windows has supports 2 rings, 3 and 0. 0 is kernel mode. Anyone who owns the hypervisor owns everything in Windows anyway, but these dudes own the UEFI, which is -2. So it's lower than that. They do what the hell they want with that box, okay? I allow everything from TeamViewer. Yes, I like them. Believe it or not, I like them. MS Build needs to be blocked because it's an own hole in AppLocker. Logitech, yes, and I think 2 Logitechs because they use different certificates. Then I allow everything from sysinternals, love them. I block presentation host. Allow everything from Microsoft. Security guys. Crazy Sami, okay? Cannot do that, that is horrible. Everything from Microsoft. I'm like, dude, this is called Microsoft AppLocker. Cannot block them from doing this, their operating system, like come on. Okay? Other media, I allow, that's a HDMI capturing device that I use. eFolor is a very important ordering family pictures from internet service, okay? Very important enterprise stuff. Cisco WebEx, Google, honestly I can't work without allowing everything from Google, all right? There's a few things that you might have wondered why they are there. PowerShell. So I deny PowerShell. I always deny PowerShell from all limited users because there's not a single cryptolocker in the world currently that would infect your computer if you block PowerShell from limited users. Sadly, the bad guys, in this case Polish bad guys that I spoke to, they said that they're going to go back to JavaScript and Visual Basic scripts because most of their customers are now blocking PowerShell anyway. Because PowerShell is the most dangerous thing. It's allowed for my admins, of course. It's a very important administration tool, the most important. But it's not allowed for limited users. So they won't get any kind of ransomware actually currently. Every one of them uses PowerShell. So that's kind of a drill down. Then you have to do DLLs as well. Because honestly, if you block PowerShell and PowerShell ISE, that would mean I could still use Visual Studio Code. That's just another PowerShell shell, okay? So how you can actually block this is by blocking the actual DLL that is used by all of those engines. I mean all of those shells. So the PowerShell engine itself is system.management.automation.dll. Block that and no tool can use it, okay? Except admins, as said. All right, so That's my examples. That's my 45 minutes of fame, which means that if you are interested in this, I'm happy to do AppLocker projects. I'll help you out. No, nothing against money, so $19. Don't do that. Anyway, so we're gonna have lunch after this. If you have, so that means we got plenty of time. If you have any questions you want to talk about this, just come up here and talk. I'm just gonna let you. No, I'm not gonna stand in between you and your lunch. So thank you very much.